Alright guys, today we're going to be looking at the Galaxy Z Fold 7, which just came out, and my Oppo Find N5, and we're going to be comparing the many ways that these devices can be productive, how they can multitask. Now, two quick caveats that I want to give. First off, for those of you that want to see this be done, Z Fold 7 compared to the OnePlus Open, this device, the Oppo Find N5, is 95% the same exact software suite. There are basically no significant differences in terms of multitasking and productivity. Secondly, both of these devices have so many ways to get these sorts of jobs done that I am going to leave something out. I'm going to do something one way that you wanted to see done another way. Drop a comment down below, but please don't expect me to get every single thing in this video. It would be impossible. So the first thing about these devices that makes them instantly more productive than a standard phone is the fact that they can open up into a much larger form factor. We have an 8-inch diagonal screen here for the Z Fold 7 and an 8.12-inch screen diagonal, again, there for the Find N5. It's also worth noting that the Find N5 is also just a little bit wider overall in terms of its aspect ratio. Not a huge amount, but you can, I think, see there fairly clearly. It is a little bit wider, and when you're talking about split screen multitasking, that should be a point in favor of the Find N5. So of course, whatever general app you use, you're just going to have a very large canvas to use with that application. But what makes these devices, to me, so productive is not just running one big app, it is split screen multitasking. And both of these phones have a myriad of different options to get into split screen multitasking, but the simplest is their taskbar. They both have a very similar taskbar that you swipe up from the bottom, and from there, you can either tap on an app to quickly switch to it, or you can press and hold and drag that app up onto the screen. Since it's available on both of them, we'll do Feedly. So over here, you can see if I drag this up, it's going to put that app next to the opened application. But I can also put it up here up top, or down here at the bottom, or in the middle, and it would be a pop-up view, a floating window, which we'll talk about here in just a little while. Let's just release it there. Everything slides over and adjusts, and now you have two apps side by side. On the Find N5, the same sort of thing is true. You can see for some reason, this always kind of bugs me. The animation where it starts is just a little bit slower. But you can put the app on the right, you can put the app on the left, but top and bottom is not an immediate option. And if you want to do a floating window, you got to put it in the middle and kind of let it sit there for just a second. But in general, it's a very similar system. You can see once again, everything reflows and you have two apps side by side. Now, once you are side by side, you can tap this middle button and you can do a top-bottom split for both. But you can immediately see where something is very different about the way that Oppo or OnePlus is doing this. The top app is going off the screen. If you tap it, it's going to shift back down. If you want to see both of these apps at the same time in a top-bottom split, you're going to need to tap up here and then hope that this app is one that can actually be, I think the button says shrink. It shrinks down. In this instance, Feedly apparently is not one of these applications that can shrink. Let's go up here. Can it shrink? No, it can't either. So in this instance, you just cannot do this. While editing that part of the video, I got a little bit curious as to why those two apps were not able to shrink. So I tried several different applications, and I couldn't get any of them to actually shrink down, which is very strange because I feel like I could do that before. I even tried enabling some things in developer options where you can force all apps to be resizable because I feel like something like that needed to be done in the past, but I just cannot get these applications to shrink in a top-bottom split. I pulled out my OnePlus Open, tested it on there as well, several different applications. Just can't get it to happen, but I swear that used to be a thing. Am I crazy? Drop a comment down below. However, on the Z Fold, they have a new feature called 90-10 split. I'm not actually sure if that's officially what they're calling it, but that's what we're going to call it. If you take this middle divider and you drag it down to where the color begins to change, you now have the exact same thing that OnePlus has or Oppo has with their 90-10 split. Now, one huge difference is that OnePlus and Oppo can actually bring in another application. Let's drag in Firefox, drag here to add to split view. And now you can see there are 3 apps. But again, you don't see all 3 of them at the same time. They are sort of going off the screen. And each of these, in this instance, can be expanded. So now full screen web browser and then 2 apps split screen up top. You can expand this so that there are 2 full screen apps and then 1 sort of smaller one. And you can also expand this one as well so that you now have 3 full screen apps that you can jump around between. And at any point, you can do a 4-finger swipe in or pinch in to see every app at the same time, although that might be maybe not the best possible experience. Over here, if you want to have a third application, what you're going to need to do is put this back into a 50-50 split, grab our taskbar, and then we can drag it in, and you can see it's going to occupy this corner, this corner, this corner, or this corner. Let's just go down here. So now you have a big app up top and then 2 apps that are smaller down below. You don't quite have the same ability to jump between these full screen apps like you do on the Find N5. Now both of these are capable of saving a pair. So if you click on this little divider, you can hit that star and it will save these apps together in a little icon. You click on it and it will bring you right back to this exact orientation. The same thing is possible over here on the Find N5. So let's talk about floating windows. Let's say you want to open up this Feedly app as a floating window. You can drag this into the middle and open it up, and there you go. You have this app now just sort of floating, hanging out there, and you can move it around. You can toss it off to the side to kind of hide it. You can resize it, but notice that you can't change the aspect ratio. Once you get it to a certain size, it kind of wants to sit over there in the corner. You can tap it again to expand it. This is pretty darn good, but I do have to say, I think that what Samsung does is just a little bit better. We're going to go into our app drawer to get Feedly this time and put it in the middle. The difference here is that they can change size and shape, and every single application will do a floating window on the Samsung device. Let's actually make this a little bit brighter. We've lost some brightness here. But the same things are true. You can kind of toss it off the screen and bring it back in. You have a handle at the top, which are going to have very, very similar options there. The difference is Samsung is just more universal and more flexible. I will say, going through applications and checking floating window, there were a few that didn't used to work. Like I think YouTube Music maybe didn't used to work, but it does now work. So maybe that floating window compatibility thing isn't as big a deal on ColorOS or I guess on Oxygen OS as it used to be. But again, the ability to change the aspect ratio is still something to consider. You can also obviously launch pop-up view from this view as well. For the actual split screening thing, this is such a hard thing to judge because it's just so complicated. I really like boundless view, open canvas, whatever you want to call it. That's the thing where you can expand these applications and jump back and forth. I think that that is really, really useful. But now we can basically do that over here as well. We have the same option for 2 apps. We can do it for 3 apps over here. But I would say floating windows are better on the Samsung side. So I think it's going to come down to what is more important to you. Is floating window flexibility, changing the aspect ratio, the most important thing to you? Is it more important than having 3 applications that are basically full screen that you can jump between? Is 2 enough for you? I tend to only ever really multitask with 2 apps. So for me, this is pretty sufficient. I don't really do the third app all that often, and the floating window thing is kind of a big deal to me. I like being able to change that shape if I need to do it. One thing that I do fairly often is I will be using Wise. Maybe I'm waiting for a package to arrive. Let's just go ahead and open this up, and let's just go to my front door. And let's say that I want to be watching this at all times. Well, I can do my little corner swipe and drag this down and stick it up in the corner, and it's the aspect ratio of that video playing. That's a big deal to me. So for me, I think by just a tiny little bit, I might lean towards the Z Fold 7 at this point, but they're both very good. This is such a good example of how it is impossible for me to get everything into this video because I forgot something quite substantial. Let's fire up an app again. There is another way besides just using your taskbar or doing this and clicking on this to open in a split screen view, or over here, split screen view. There are so many different ways to get into a split screen view. OnePlus and Oppo have my favorite way. 2-finger swipe down from the top. It splits your app open and you just see your home screen, and you can just use muscle memory to launch that second app. There is an option on the Samsung device to do a 2-finger swipe in from whatever side you want. If you want to do top bottom, swipe here from the side, swipe here, swipe up from the bottom, whatever you want to do. But you can swipe in from the side, it slides over and it shows you your recent apps, and then it just shows you an app drawer. But to me, I would rather just have my home screen because the muscle memory is just going to be stronger there, and that's a very important thing to me. So if you add that in, you factor that in, where I said I lean slightly to the Z Fold, I don't know, maybe that makes this a bit of a draw. But then the Z Fold 7 has something that is, maybe you could consider quite a large ace in the hole in Samsung DeX. You want to be productive? Plug this thing into an external monitor, Bluetooth, mouse, and keyboard, and you have a fully fledged desktop user interface. Now, look, a lot of people are going to find this to be completely useless. They're never going to do this. But for those of you who actually use it all the time, it can be invaluable. I know there are people who watch my content who comment down below that they don't use a laptop or a desktop computer. They just use a Samsung phone for everything. When they want to use a larger screen and have that sort of experience, they just plug their phone in, and that's what powers it. That is, again, not for everyone, but for some people, a very, very big deal. If I try to put it all together and determine a concise, obvious winner in terms of productivity between these two devices, looking at multitasking specifically, split window, floating window, it is very, very hard to declare an obvious winner. I think that they just basically go back and forth. They trade punches and they match each other in a lot of ways. At the end of the day, both of these devices are absolutely fantastic. And which one you prefer is probably going to come down to some small subjective things that are going to be hard for me to quantify. I quite enjoy both of them. I can't really give you that clickbaity answer of like Samsung destroys Oppo and OnePlus or vice versa. It's just not the case. They're both absolutely fantastic. I will say, if DeX is a deal breaker for you or lack of a desktop mode, there's your obvious answer. If you want a couple more millimeters of width, here is your obvious answer. Or you need 3 apps in full screen, quickly jumping back and forth between them. Maybe that's a better option for the Oppo device, the OnePlus device. There is your winner there. But I think most people, it's going to be a stalemate. Guys, of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like I said earlier, I can't possibly include everything. So give me some comments down there about things that I might have missed, things that are important to you. Give your perspective. It's always fun to hear that stuff. Hit that subscribe button before you go. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.